Chapter 31. Unjust Involvement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations, pop, pop, pop. A wave of muffled sound echoed out, closely followed by an immensely thick fog that rose up from below the feet of Zhang Yangping and the rest of the hunting squad. Why is there smoke? This is bad, this kid is starting a fire. Quick, run. Aya. In the middle of the waves of chaotic shouting, a hunting squad member once again stepped on thin air, and fell into the depths of the trap. You dare to set fire in the mountain, this is too cruel. Zhang Yangping clenched his fists tightly. Robbery was robbery, but setting a fire to the mountain was an act that destroyed their future. How were they going to hunt in the mountain next time? This is too cruel. Where's the fire? Quick, get the water bottle over. Seems like there's no fire. What's the meaning of this? There's only smoke, Cough cough. So suffocating. As the hunting squad hurriedly tried to locate the origin of the fire, they realized that there weren't even any places that caught fire. There was only an immensely thick and suffocating smoke that expanded outwards unstoppably. Very quickly, they were completely unable to see their surroundings clearly. Looking at this scene unfolding before him, Fang Zhengji was rather dissatisfied, and shook his head. These few days, not only did he dig the traps, he also put in much effort to experiment with some saltpeter and white sugar. These smoke bombs were indeed of inferior quality. Moreover, there was even a smothered bomb. Out of the 4 smoke bombs he threw, there was actually one which didn't produce any smoke. What a huge failure. I need to improve on this next time. Then, taking his time, he slowly took out a pile of smoke bombs from the big basket. His small arms swung with wind. Like speed, and threw the bombs one by one. Smoke bombs couldn't kill, but, if used appropriately, its power was definitely stronger than a real bomb. Of course. A real bomb was something Fang Zhengji would definitely not try his hands on. Not only did it require too many ingredients, but just the potential danger of it alone was enough to hold him back. Even though I prepared quite a few, but I must still use them prudently. Fang Zhengji decided that he couldn't afford to waste. Aya, help. Quick, run away quick, Aya, Eddie et, how are you guys? Even though Fang Zhengji conserved and held back, but under the barrage of low-grade smoke bombs, the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad finally descended into chaos, each of their eyes flowing with tears evoked by the thick smoke. Coughing uncontrollably, their legs instinctively wanted to run away. And this was exactly what Fang Zhengji hoped for. Cruel kid, he actually used such shameless tactics on us. Smoke. How do I even deal with this? Zhang Yangping roared. He didn't want to move, but he couldn't take the smoke anymore. Lifting his blade, he prepared to make a decisive move. Unfortunately, after running less than 10 steps, his feet met with thin air. Aya. With a sharp cry, Zhang Yangping's body dropped downwards like a stone sinking in the water. At a forest not too far away, Ding Qingshan and his team were searching furiously for prey. Then, lifting his head, his expression instantly changed. Which place just caught fire? Deputy Captain, the smoke is coming from that direction. It seems to be the Northern Mountain Village's territory. A hunter following beside Ding Qingshan noticed the billowing smoke as well. Quick, gather everybody to go over and take a look. Fire on the Cangling Mountain was of huge importance. Even though the fire started at the Northern Mountain Village's hunting territory, Ding Qingshan still didn't dare to hesitate. After all, Cangling Mountain was the livelihood of many villages in its radius. Roger. Very quickly, following Ding Qingshan's lead, the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad members had rushed to the source of the fire. Ding Qingshan frowned. Because, looking at the scene in front of him, screaming sounds cried out continuously, and the thick smoke completely covered the entire landscape. He was absolutely unable to see clearly what was happening. Deputy Captain, Northern Mountain Village people seems to be caught inside. Should we help? What are you saying? Obviously we should help. Gritting his teeth, Ding Qingshan didn't hesitate much. Even though the situation in front of him looked very dangerous, but the Northern Mountain Village and the Southern Mountain Village were ultimately intrinsically linked. The usual fighting over hunting was unpreventable, but turning a blind eye when others were in peril was impossible. Quick, go help them. When a few hunters heard Ding Qingshan's orders, they immediately lifted their arms, broke off some nearby tree branches and quickly rushed into the smoke. Of course, the faster they rushed, the faster they fell. Without much ado, the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad also landed into the traps. Aya, what the hell, why is there a hole here? Damn! Where did this trap come from? Fire! Where's the fire? After the entire Northern Mountain Village hunting squad had fallen, the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad was also unfortunately dragged into this. In a blink of an eye, the entire squad had fallen inside the traps. The already rather small area was quickly filled with over 30 men. This made some of the traps somewhat squeezy. The more unfortunate ones had 3 or 4 people falling into them. Why did you guys also fall in? A Southern Mountain Village hunter was slightly shocked and he saw the Northern Mountain Village hunter in the same trap as him. Ah! Don't mention it anymore, we were robbed by a 7-year-old kid. The Northern Mountain Village hunter sighed, shaking his head. Robbed? Isn't it a fire? There's no fire, that kid only smoked out the area, he didn't set any fire. Half an hour later, the smoke began to disperse, revealing a huge mess. The ground was filled with all kinds of bow and arrows, blades and spears, and even a few tightly bound prey. On the other hand, the Northern Mountain Village and Southern Mountain Village hunting squad squatted in their traps, their faces filled with tears. The Northern Mountain Village hunting squad didn't have a choice. When they were waiting on top, they also thought of standing still to avoid the pitfalls. But the smoke was too suffocating. Compared to standing on top and suffocating for half an hour, they honestly rather waited in the traps. At least, smoke rises upwards, it was actually quite comfortable inside the traps. The Northern Mountain Village hunting squad was now comfortable, but on the other hand the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad was filled with indignation. They were here to save the fire, but what happened? Not only did they not manage to save any fire, the entire hunting squad was now also in trouble. Robbery. You Northern Mountain Village people are the ones being robbed, how does this even concern us? When many of the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad members realized this, they began to scold angrily. But in the end, even though they were indeed unhappy, they ultimately accepted their fate. Luck wasn't on their side. Fang Zhengji had no idea that the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad had rushed in, he was just leisurely hiding behind the rock and tossing smoke bombs. When everything was finally silent and no movement was left, then did he decide to stop. Once the smoke began to disperse, he carefully assessed his surroundings, realized that there was no one hiding in ambush and finally began to relax. Ambush. Without a gas mask, how can anybody stand it? This thing was advanced technology indeed. How suffocating is it? Whoever tried will definitely know. Oh, what a nice blade. Fang Zhengji seemed very delighted, picking up a glinting long blade as he walked. Then, without any remorse, kept it inside the big basket. Nice sword. He kept it too. This spear isn't bad either. This bow might come in useful someday. When the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad, entrapped in their respective pitfalls, heard the voice coming from outside, their faces turned black. They naturally knew who was the one picking up stuff on top. The Southern Mountain Village hunting squad on the other hand was filled with shock. Because, this voice was too familiar. This young voice, could it be Fang Zhengji? Chapter 32. A huge yield. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. Zhengji, is that you? Ding Qingshan was the first to react. He was currently squeezed in a hole with a few other members of the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad, his face laden with mud. He felt very uncomfortable. Ha! Uncle Qingshan, what are you doing here? When Fang Zhengji heard Ding Qingshan's voice, he quickly ran over and popped his tiny head into the hole. It's really Zhengji. After looking at Fang Zhengji, his face instantly reddened. That's right, what is he even doing here? Isn't it because he just had ill luck? The Northern Mountain Village was the one being robbed, yet he also involved himself in it. Wait. Something seemed wrong. Just now. The Northern Mountain Village person seemed to have said, they were robbed by a 7-year-old boy. Could it be? That's impossible. If it really was Fang Zhengji who robbed the entire Northern Mountain Village hunting squad, wasn't that a little too inconceivable? Not possible, not possible. Ding Qingshan furiously shook his head. He remembered that the 7 or 8 times Fang Zhengji came to the mountain, he didn't even manage to catch a single prey. Rob the Northern Mountain Village. Even if the sun rose from the west, something like this happening was still not possible. Kid, you dare to rob our Northern Mountain Village, let us out quickly, else. A Northern Mountain Village hunting squad member instantly shouted when he saw Fang Zhengji's tiny head. Ding Qingshan's face finally changed at this moment. That feeling of shock and horror was unprecedented. Looking at the Fang Zhengji's tiny head popping into the hole, then looking at his young and small face, he suddenly felt like burying himself in the ground. As the deputy captain of the hunting squad, even though he wouldn't make fun of Fang Zhengji outrightly. But, this didn't imply that he looked up to Fang Zhengji at all. After the many times he returned empty-handed, he had already considered Fang Zhengji as a playful and lazy kid. But now, this lazy kid managed to do something they would never be able to do. He robbed the entire Northern Mountain Village hunting squad. He didn't dare to believe, but, this was reality. As he heard the Northern Mountain Village hunter's words, he already could affirm that the lazy kid in his heart taught him an unforgettable lesson on robbery today. Just one person, robbing the entire Northern Mountain Village hunting squad. How unbelievable was this? How unthinkable was this? How? Wait, something else seemed to be not quite right. Us, the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad, seemed to have also fallen into this trap. Ding Qingshan's face reddened once again. Because, there weren't many words he could find to describe his current feelings. What if the other party wasn't from the Southern Mountain Village? Then his hunting squad, would it have been robbed by a 7-year-old kid as well? Zhengji robbed the Northern Mountain Village. Could it be wrong? Is it really Zhengji who robbed the entire Northern Mountain Village hunting squad? My God, he's only 7. After Fang Zhengji's voice called out, Ding Qingshan was stunned beyond words. The rest of the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad were of no exception. Nobody dared to believe this fact. But, the feeling of being stuck in the trap wasn't exactly very comfortable. As such, a few of the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad members quickly began to shout out. Even though they indeed lost some face, but fortunately, under these circumstances, the Southern Mountain Village was ultimately in safe hands. This kid is from the Southern Mountain Village. Zhang Yongping, squatting in a trap, heard the discussion outside. The long blade in his hands fell directly to the ground. If Fang Zhengji was alone by himself, he still wished to take advantage of the opportunity when the other party lowered his guard, then immediately retaliate. But if the entire Southern Mountain Village was added in, then this was obviously a huge, well-planned out, conspiracy. Retaliation would then be impossible. It's over, this time it's really over. We have been robbed. All of you better quickly surrender your weapons, then prepare yourselves to be captured. Fang Jingji shouted out as he paced forward and backward outside the traps with his stumpy legs. Dream on. The northern mountain village people were reluctant. Ah, dare to disobey. Whichever hole from which a person dares to disobey. I'll go to that hole and take a piss. The northern mountain village hunting squad finally yielded, and surrendered one by one. Even though some were reluctant, but when they thought of their heads really being peed on, how were they going to live with this next time? Ding Qingshan's feelings were complicated. He didn't know where he should be happy or gloomy. But, this dilemma didn't last for long. Ha ha ha. This time our yield is huge. Looking at the prey the northern mountain village hunting squad detached from themselves and held in their hand, Ding Qingshan couldn't stop smiling. Uncle Qingshan, there is a huge tied-up pig over there. Fang Jingji didn't actually know the metal-toothed thorn hog's real name, but he could guess that this was the best catch for the northern mountain village this time. Because that pig was huge, its meat was plentiful. You all. Shameless. When Zhang Yangping heard Fang Jingji's words, his face instantly changed. The value of that one metal-toothed thorn hog was even greater than the combined worth of all the prey on their bodies. Most importantly, in order to hunt that metal-toothed thorn hog down, the northern mountain village people had suffered multiple injuries. Yet now, it had been snatched away by the southern mountain village just like that. How could he accept it? Huge pig. Don't tell me it's the metal-toothed thorn hog. The eyes of a member of the southern mountain village hunting squad lit up. That was the real treasure. Even if one roamed the mountains for a year, it would still be difficult to encounter this. You few watch over them, we'll go over and take a look. Zhengji, lead the way. Hearing this, Ding Qingshan's excitement rose. Okay. Fang Jingji nodded. Very quickly, led by Fang Jingji, Ding Qingshan and the team rapidly arrived in front of the metal-toothed thorn hog. Oh great God, it's really the metal-toothed thorn hog, it's even a matured metal-toothed thorn hog. Those two metal tusks are indeed sharp. Who would have thought that the northern mountain village hunting squad would be able to take this beast down? A hunter exclaimed. What a huge yield, this time our yield is really huge indeed. Looking at the tied-up metal-toothed thorn hog in front of them, the southern mountain village hunting squad beamed delightedly. Ha ha ha. What are you all waiting for? Others have already tied this up nicely for us, let's not wait anymore and bring this metal-toothed thorn hog away. Ding Qingshan's face was bright red with delight. This day's yield was even more than that of this entire month. A matured metal-toothed thorn hog was definitely a surprise gift from heaven. Everybody instantly sprang into action. Jingji, you can watch from the side, we won't trouble you. Let us carry this. A member of the hunting squad patted Fang Jingji's shoulders. The look in his eyes was as if he had just seen treasure. Ha ha. Fang Jingji laughed. He never planned to help out. This kind of physical work naturally belonged to the adults. He was only 7, there were some things he had to be considerate. As usual, village chief Meng Bai was holding his cigar, anxiousness showing slightly in his eyes. In this period of time, the yield of the southern mountain village hunting squad had become lower and lower. Now, the entire 100 over households in the village didn't even have enough to eat. He was also considering having a meeting with the northern mountain village. They couldn't go on like this. If this can't work, we can only bribe them with some money. Village chief Meng Bai gritted his teeth, and made a difficult decision. Come quick. The hunting squad came back with game today, what a huge yield. There are dozens of game, and even a metal-toothed thorn hog. Village chief Meng Bai, still gritting his teeth, was stunned, then, the worried expression on his face immediately turned into one of pure ecstasy. Dozens of game. And even a metal-toothed thorn hog. Oh God, this was the biggest yield in years. Quick, hurry up, send all the strong people in the village to receive the hunting squad. Village chief immediately began to call out. He recognized that this news came from the hunting squad advance party. Roger. Roger. A villager heard, and was just as delighted. The hunting squad had a huge yield. This extremely good piece of news was enough to delight the entire village. Chapter 33. Returning to the village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. A short while later, news of the hunting squad catching a metal-toothed thorn hog had spread across the entire southern mountain village. Everybody, old and young, was in a delighted mood. One after another, they ran to the back of the village and prepared to welcome the hunting squad. Village Chief Meng Bai stood right at the front of the crowd, his cigar in his hands shaking slightly. A moment ago he was still thinking of making a deal with the northern mountain village people, but now it seemed that this was completely unnecessary. After all, in making a deal, if the terms were not good enough, nobody would agree to it. Qin Shuoyan stood in the middle of the crowd. Her thoughts weren't quite the same as the everyone else. All she wished for was that Fang Zhengji would be able to return safely. Time went by slowly. The hunting squad still hadn't appeared. But, nobody left, and nobody was anxious. Instead, they were filled with excitement and anticipation. Because, the slower they walked, the more prey they carried. Finally. From the depths of the dense forest, a figure appeared. It's the hunting squad. They are back, they are finally back. The villagers' excitement instantly rose. It was as if they were celebrating the new year. Qing Shan, how is it, how much is the yield? Village Chief Meng Bai spotted Ding Qing Shan among the group, and immediately walked over to him, holding his cigar. That stride didn't seem old at all. Village Chief, look, everything behind is our yield. Ding Qing Shan pointed at the prey hanging off the hunting squad members, and the metal-toothed thorn hog that was being carried in the middle of the group, his face beaming with happiness. When Village Chief Meng Bai saw these, he couldn't contain his happiness anymore. This was because on all of the hunting squad members, apart from the Fang Zhengji walking at the front, there were at least 2 animals hanging from almost everybody's waist, some even had 3 or 4. Whoa! What a beast! This is such a big metal-toothed thorn hog. My God, there are at least a dozen animals, their bodies are filled to the maximum. The villagers were all extremely happy. Immediately, some of the villagers volunteered to help carry the metal-toothed thorn hog, and some helped to detach the animals hanging off the hunting squad members. Qin Shuoyan also rushed out of the crowd and gave Fang Zhengji a huge embrace. Are you injured? When they took down the metal-toothed thorn hog, did you participate? Qin Shuoyan's biggest concern was whether Fang Zhengji got injured when the hunting squad took down the metal-toothed thorn hog. Fang Zhengji's heart was filled with warmth. Family love would always be the most precious thing in the world. I didn't participate, Fang Zhengji replied immediately. In reality, he indeed didn't participate. This metal-toothed thorn hog was hunted down by the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad. All he did was carry it away from them. That's good, that's good. Qin Shuoyan finally relaxed after hearing this. Of course he won't participate. This useless kid only knows how to hide on the mountain and sleep. It would be incredible if he could even get hurt. Mrs. Li stood within the crowd. After hearing Qin Shuoyan and Fang Zhengji's conversation, she couldn't resist commenting coldly. The rest of the villagers also smiled. After all, Fang Zhengji not catching a single animal in many days was the reality. Furthermore, they also saw, Fang Zhengji's body was indeed empty. Not even a green-furred rabbit was hanging from it. That's because Zhengji is still small. That's right, he's just a 7-year-old boy, how much can you expect? He might be small, but by always following the hunting squad into the mountain, not being able to catch anything wouldn't be a problem in the long term. He just has to work harder. The villagers discussed, all of them smiling. This time the yield of the hunting squad was huge, but nothing hanged off Fang Jingji's body, making the villagers feeling slightly uncomfortable. Ding Qingshan was conversing with the village chief at this moment. When he heard the commotion, he instantly frowned. All of you shut your mouths. This time the hunting squad was able to catch so many animals, it is all due to this child Jingji. If not for Jingji, how would we have caught anything at all? Ding Qingshan's tone seemed serious. As the deputy captain of the hunting squad, his words indeed beared some weight in the southern mountain village. What? All because of Jingji. What's this all about? What did Jingji do? Don't tell me he was able to catch something. When the villagers heard Ding Qingshan's words, all of their faces were filled with disbelief. They couldn't understand, how could Fang Jingji, with his tiny arms and short legs, who didn't even bring a blade up the mountain, be of any use in the hunting squad? Most importantly, Ding Qingshan said, it was all because of Fang Jingji. What is happening? It wasn't just the villagers. Even village chief Meng Bai's face was filled with suspicion as he looked at Ding Qingshan. It was Jingji who robbed the entire northern mountain village hunting squad, that is why, the yield this time was all due to Jingji's efforts alone. Gazing at the looks of suspicion on everybody's faces, then shifting his gaze over to Mrs. Li, gave a spiteful huff, then explained loudly. Robbery. What did he say? Fang Jingji robbed the entire northern mountain village hunting squad. How is this possible? After hearing Ding Qingshan's words, the villagers' expressions turned into that of disbelief. They indeed remembered, the past 7 or 8 times Fang Jingji entered the mountain, didn't he not even manage to catch a green-furred rabbit? How could he suddenly have robbed the northern mountain village hunting squad? The northern mountain village hunting squad. Over 20 strong men, each of them armed with bows. How can a child who didn't even bring along a blade rob the northern mountain village hunting squad? No matter how they thought, they still felt that this was all a fantasy. Fang Jingji robbed the northern mountain village hunting squad. Mrs. Li's expression darkened. No matter how much she thought, she couldn't understand how Fang Jingji could rob the northern mountain village hunting squad. When Qin Shuilian heard about the robbery, she was instantly taken aback. Looking at Fang Jingji standing beside her, she absolutely didn't dare to believe that her own son had actually robbed the northern mountain village hunting squad. Jingji. How could you do such a stupid thing? Did you get hurt? Did you get hurt? I didn't, Mom. Don't touch me, don't take off my clothes, I already said I didn't. Qin Shuilian's probing instantly made Fang Jingji somewhat anxious. Don't tell me I have to be stripped in front of so many people. Village chief Meng Bai's face immediately changed, gazing across at the surrounding villagers, their faces deep in shock, then looking at Ding Qingshan's serious expression. Likewise, he didn't dare to believe it. But, Ding Qingshan couldn't possibly be lying. Moreover, most importantly, when Ding Qingshan spoke, among all the hunting squad members, none of them stood out to oppose. This could only mean one thing. What Ding Qingshan said was true. This is really all Jingji's doing. Village chief Meng Bai walked over to Ding Qingshan's side and asked softly. Yes, of course, this is all Jingji's doing. It was impressive. He actually dug out a large trap in the northern mountain village's hunting territory. Not only did the northern mountain village hunting squad land into trouble, even the entire group of us fell inside. Even though Ding Qingshan knew that admitting this would be rather embarrassing, but reality was reality. This was something everybody managed to see, hence naturally, he didn't dare to hide it. Chapter 34. Genius. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations, a huge trap. He dug it by himself. How did he even do that? Village chief Meng Bai felt that things were becoming increasingly mysterious. Recalling what he recently thought of Fang Jingji, his wrinkled face instantly flushed red. It's really Fang Jingji's doing. When the villagers heard Ding Qingshan and village chief Meng Bai's conversation, one after another their jaws began to drop in shock. This kind of news indeed had too much of an impact on them. That can't be. This child Jingji is so strong that he can actually rob the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad. Ha ha ha. What I saw was true. Previously at the parade square I had already realized how impressive Jingji was. He definitely had huge potential. This incident has exacted revenge for the Southern Mountain Village. Metal-toothed thorn hog, this is really an amazing feat, even though the villagers were making fun of Fang Jingji not too long ago, but, when the truth was confirmed, their attitudes changed instantly and their faces not even the slightest bit reddened from their previous laughter. No matter what, Fang Jingji did exact revenge for the Southern Mountain Village this time. When village chief Meng Bai heard Ding Qingshan's reply, he had also accepted the truth. Good. Good boy. Quick, carry all the animals to the village square. Village chief Meng Bai fished out his cigar, took a deep breath, then began to give orders for the villagers to move the animals to the village square. There was indeed strength in numbers. A short moment later, all of the prey had been neatly placed in the middle of the village square. The metal-toothed thorn hog on the other hand was hung up high. The festive air of the Southern Mountain Village was similar to that of during the New Year. The only person whose face was black as night was Mrs. Li. Gazing at the animals on the village square, she refused to believe her eyes. Jingji, come over quick. After all the animals had been placed neatly, village chief Meng Bai waved to Fang Jingji, who was currently being surrounded by a group of people. Village chief. Fang Jingji walked over to village chief Meng Bai's side. Tell everybody, what method did you use to rob the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad? Village chief Meng Bai still found it rather unbelievable. After all, Fang Jingji had only just turned 7. Hearing village chief Meng Bai's words, they also quieted down, one by one stopped chattering. They all waited expectantly for Fang Jingji to share his robbery experience. Qin Shuoyan had already finished inspecting Fang Jingji's body a long time ago, and was assured that Fang Jingji's body was indeed free from injuries, hence she also stood smiling among the crowd and looked on. Even Fang Haod was supported by a few people to the village square, something that didn't happen very often. Still disabled, he was sitting on a chair at this moment, holding a walking stick in his hands. However, the smile on his face couldn't be missed. Good boy, you finally realized your potential. You have even surpassed your own dad. Gazing at the expectant faces of the villagers, he knew it was time for him to stay low profile. Feeling around in his pockets, he took out the illustration he prepared. The source of the rock formation illustration posed as a problem. Naturally, he definitely could not claim that he was the one who came up with it. Indeed, if he admitted that he had studied the 8 diagrams tactics before, that would be a little too shocking. Hence, after some pondering, Fang Jingji could only pin the source of these ideas on, and credit it entirely to Lolita. Did you say? After you had previously seen the question the missus from the Divine Constabulary asked Li Huer. You then thought of this drawing based on that. After Fang Jingji explained, village chief Meng Bai looked at the drawing on his hands and was absolutely shocked. Genius. What is a genius? Having the memory of an elephant. No, this was called being able to deducing multiple things from just one event. Yes. Fang Jingji replied confidently. Good boy, what a good boy. Village chief Meng Bai welled up with emotions. He was almost unable to speak, and could only mutter incessantly. The other villagers were also completely stunned. After seeing that one question, he was able to think of and apply methods inspired from the question to deploy traps. This was really too extreme. Jingji is amazing, he was actually able to draw something like this just by taking a look at the question. This is really too smart. Yes, Mrs. Fong had given birth to a great son. Howd, you are going to live such a comfortable life now. I bet even if you were dreaming you would have smiled yourself awake. The villagers showered praises without any form of holding back. A few women quickly surrounded Qin Shuolian, and profusely offered to marry off their daughters to Fang Jingji to become his wife. Among them, there were even women who scrambled over trying to curry favor with Mrs. Li the previous time in the village square to marry off their daughters to Li Hure. In a blink of an eye, these people began to say the same thing to Qin Shuolian. Mrs. Li's expression instantly turned even uglier. Fang Jingji, listening to these spirited discussions from the side, felt that these matters had to be considered at length. After all, these so-called daughters were really too small. Most of them were 2 or 3 years of old, and among them there was even one who was only given birth to 2 months. How could he possibly know what they would look like in the future? Fang Jingji wasn't really someone who judged based on people's looks, but, if he really had to marry a fat woman like Mrs. Li, that was definitely going to be quite brutal. Nobody came over to ask Fang Jingji's opinion, these made him somewhat gloomy. As the women argued intensely about how good their daughter was, the men were still in deep shock. Even though Fang Jingji attributed his thinking to Lolita, it still stirred up a rather large commotion. To be able to imprint in memory and copy out the illustration just by taking one look at it was already an amazing feat, yet he was still able to alter it further. Wang Anhua, who was among the crowd, looked at the trap formation Fang Jingji drew and his eyes instantly lit up brightly. Taking a few steps out of the crowd, Village Chief took over the illustration from Village Chief Meng Bai and studied it carefully. Then, his initial shock grew bigger and bigger. Even though he didn't completely understand what was illustrated on it, but looking at the formation, it seemed contained some incredibly amazing patterns. Could it have originated from the 8 diagrams tactics? That was an extremely profound knowledge found within the law of Tao. Even those great people who accessed Tao might not be able to comprehend this. A 7-year-old child really could reach such a level just from reading. Sir, what do you think? Village Chief Meng Bai looked at Wang Anhua expectantly. In this southern mountain village, Wang Anhua represented knowledge and learning. I can't really understand. Wang Anhua answered honestly. Can't understand. Do your words refer to? Village Chief Meng Bai wasn't quite able to understand what Wang Anhua said. Do you think it would be possible to let me bring this back and study it in more detail over the night? I'll get back to you after a few days. Wang Anhua didn't speak further. He had thought of Lolita's instructions for him. Jingji, what do you think? Village Chief Meng Bai turned over his head and sought Fang Jingji's opinion. At this time, in Village Chief Meng Bai's heart, he had already treated Fang Jingji as a member of the hunting squad. This was the due respect he had to show to an adult. All right. But, I have a request. Fang Jingji nodded. Chapter 35. Shameless Greed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations, what request? Wang Anhua wasn't surprised that Fang Jingji would make a request. After all, he had already experienced Fang Jingji's shamelessness first-hand. Village Chief Meng Bai frowned. He felt that it was inappropriate for Fang Jingji to make such a request. After all, Wang Anhua was a sir from the Hall of Tao. However, the illustration belonged to Fang Jingji, hence he didn't attempt to vocalize his thoughts. I would like to request sir to copy out the illustration and give one to each member of the hunting squad. Fang Jingji spoke his mind. Oh. What for? Wang Anhua asked questioningly. He had initially thought that Fang Jingji would request for this to remain a secret or ask for some other benefits, but never did he think that Fang Jingji would only request for him to copy it out a few times. Because, I'm thinking that if we make use of this illustration to set up the same trap at multiple locations within the Zhongling Mountain, then, we can link up all these areas so that in the future, the prey would fall into the trap by themselves. All the hunting squad would have to do is to kill off the entrapped prey. Fang Zhengji expressed his plans. He had wanted to copy the illustration by himself initially, but having bumped into Wang Anhua, he decided to let him exhibit his generosity. Saving more time to read books, what a noble and thoughtful idea. Thumbs up for myself. In fact, he had already prepared to give the illustration to the village from the moment he took it out. The Southern Mountain Village hunting squad had played a huge role in the result of today's yield. It would have been difficult to subdue all of the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad without getting injured, even if he had managed to trap all of them by himself. That aside, what if he was the only person who could catch a single prey? That would indeed be very tiring. Hunting. It's just a mean of survival. Fang Zhengji wanted to invest more effort into his studies and training. Thus, giving out the rock formation illustration and hence bringing out its greatest potential, was the best way to go. Can this method really work? Village Chief Meng Bai grew excited even before Wang Anhua could reply. If this method was carried out, it would have solved one of the greatest problems that had been pestering the Southern Mountain Village. It didn't just mean that the hunting squad would bring in more food, the greater benefit was that the safety of the hunting squad would increase substantially. Yes, I think this is doable. Wang Anhua nodded his head as he looked at the illustration. The villagers that heard this revealed an expression filled with shock and happiness. This was a great accomplishment that would prevent the Southern Mountain Village villagers from going hungry. If it was possible, it would be great. Yes. It would be like having a hunting farm on top of Tsangling Mountain. Village chef, I think we can give it a try. Since the hunting squad would still continue to enter the mountain as per normal, all they have to do is to bring along an additional shovel. There wouldn't be any harm in it. Ding Qingshan, who had personally experienced the sheer potential of the trap, replied enthusiastically. All right. We will give it a try. Ha ha ha. Village Chief Meng Bai nodded. Thinking about what would happen once this plan was carried out to its completion, he envisioned piles and piles of prey stacked up highly. Mrs. Li's face darkened. Darting her eyes back and forth between Fang Zhengji and the smiling village chief Meng Bai, she felt a sense of unease. After the joy of a good yield gradually disappeared, village chief Meng Bai frowned again. Because, he now faced a greater problem. It was something he had never even taken into consideration before, but in accordance to his promise to Fang Zhengji. Every animal that Fang Zhengji caught belonged entirely to him. Village Chief Meng Bai's face alternated between red and white as he looked at the pile of animal, at a loss of what to do. Zhengji. Can I discuss something with you? Village Chief Meng Bai put aside his cigar and quietly pulled Fang Zhengji to the side. Fang Zhengji naturally knew what the village chief was about to say. He had robbed the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad, and now, the Southern Mountain Village chief was about to rob him. Say what you wish, village chief, I'm very easy to talk to. Moreover, I'm a person of great virtue, I'll keep to my words, even if it means death. Fang Zhengji replied with an innocent expression. Village Chief Meng Bai's face instantly turned red. Even a 7-year-old kid was able to keep his words. As a village chief, am I going to go back on them? This. Village Chief Meng Bai laughed dryly as he looked towards the pile of animals stacked up in the village square, then looked at Fang Zhengji's tender face. It was hard for him to speak. Fang Zhengji sighed silently to himself. He knew very clearly that his small arms could not save him. If he really wanted to take everything away, he was sure that the villagers would have some things to say. Or, the villagers would not discuss about him. However, behind his back, they would criticize his parents for being unwilling to contribute to the village, and being unable to uphold the virtues that made one human. Man can be greedy, however. One cannot be shamelessly greedy. If it was not for the help of the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad, the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad would not have surrendered so easily. Furthermore, it would have been impossible for him to carry all the animals down by himself. The amount of game is plentiful today, I believe they would take some time to finish by myself. Village chief, please distribute some of it out. But, the metal-toothed thorn hog. Fang Jingji stopped speaking without saying anything further. Yes, I understand what you mean. Village chief Meng Bai instantly began to smile. Fang Jingji's intentions were clear, other than the metal-toothed thorn hog, the rest were to be distributed out. Although the metal-toothed thorn hog had been taken away, there were still a lot of animals left over. This left village chief Meng Bai extremely satisfied with this outcome. However, even though village chief Meng Bai was satisfied, that didn't mean that everyone else was as well. The moment Mrs. Li heard village chief Meng Bai announce that the entire metal-toothed thorn hog was to be distributed to Fang Jingji, her face flushed red as if she had swallowed a fly. She instantly couldn't hold back any longer. The metal-toothed thorn hog was a treasure. Not only was its meat more plentiful compared to that of other animals, its metal tusks were especially sharp. Being harder than raw metal, it could be used to make valuable tools that were worth silvers. Usually, village chief Meng Bai would take one metal tusk for himself, and the other one would definitely fall into the hands of Li family. But now, not only was she not given the metal tusk, she didn't even manage secure a strand of hog hair. How could Mrs. Li bear with this? How can village chief be so biased? According to usual practices, how can the rules be changed just because the yield is higher this time? Old Li from our family had led the hunting squad for the past few years and had also suffered his fair share up in the Cangling mountain. Now that he entered the Hall of Dao, he has to study every single day. This is all for the village's future. But now, we are getting bullied. I don't accept this method of distribution. Chapter 36. A tuft of fur. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. When village chief Meng Bai heard Mrs. Li's incessant nagging, he instantly began to frown. Usually, he could easily turn a deaf ear to Mrs. Li's words, but today wasn't quite the same. This pile of animals by right belonged entirely to Fang Jingji himself. He had already, with great difficulty, persuaded Fang Jingji to change his mind. If any further changes occurred, the conclusion wouldn't be as simple anymore. When the other villagers heard Mrs. Li's complaints, they also became rather unhappy. Village chief Meng Bai's declaration to distribute the metal-toothed thorn hog to the Fang family was something everybody had already expected and had no complaints about. After all, when Fang Jingji entered the hunting squad, all the prey he hunted belonged to him. These words were announced by the village chief in front of everybody. Furthermore, the southern mountain village had barely any yield after being in the mountains for such a long time. If it weren't for Fang Jingji, the other animals wouldn't have been caught, not even mentioning the metal-toothed thorn hog. Mrs. Li, all these hunted prey today actually belongs to Jingji. Indeed, it is already very kind of Jingji to offer to split these animals with everyone. A few of the villagers standing beside Mrs. Li quietly began to remind her. Since Mrs. Li doesn't exactly agree with this distribution method, I think I can make some changes. Fang Jingji stepped out of the crowd at this moment. Village chief Meng Bai was taken aback, but he didn't attempt to stop him. Because Fang Jingji was now qualified to speak in the southern mountain village. The other villagers, seeing that Fang Jingji had spoken, also looked on curiously. Ah, at least Jingji can reason properly. Luckily Auntie didn't take care of you for nothing. Quick, tell everybody, what changes should be made. Mrs. Li was overjoyed when she saw Fang Jingji step out. When she heard the villagers' discussions, she had also thought of giving up. But now it seemed that Jingji was still a kid after all. How could he actually contend against adults? I think we should distribute the other animals to the rest, then my family and the Li family will share this metal-toothed thorn hog together. What do you think, Auntie Li? Fang Jingji winked a few times at Mrs. Li. Sharing the metal-toothed thorn hog among my family and your family. Mrs. Li never imagined that Fang Jingji would actually be so generous. She immediately grinned delightedly. That makes sense, I agree with this form of distribution. The rest of the villagers also heard what Fang Zhengji had said. Their eyes widened. I completely don't understand this. Wasn't he highly intelligent just now? How did he suddenly become so dumb? Qin Shuoyan also became quite worried, and wanted to step out to prevent this. Unfortunately, she was held back by Fang Haod. Don't worry. Even though Fang Haod was simple and down to earth, he knew that his son was indeed not stupid. Since Fang Zhengji had said these, he definitely had his reasons. Even if they really had to share half of the metal-toothed thorn hog with Mrs. Li, as long as it was reasonable, Fang Zhengji would also approve of it. That means, Auntie Li has agreed to it. Fang Zhengji continued to ask. I agree, of course I agree. Mrs. Li nodded, her head bobbing like a chicken pecking on its feed. Sure. Then let's invite village chief and everyone else to bear witness to this moment. Today, the prey over here won't be distributed to Auntie Li, then, I'll share a portion of the metal-toothed thorn hog with Auntie Li. Fang Zhengji nodded and looked towards village chief Meng Bai. Okay. Village chief Meng Bai nodded. Since Fang Zhengji himself volunteered to distribute the metal-toothed thorn hog, he didn't bother to unnecessarily involve himself any further. The rest of the villagers also began to nod their heads one by one, looking at Fang Zhengji with an expression of someone looking at a fool. Mrs. Li naturally didn't have any further comments and instantly accepted. Then, Fang Zhengji cleared his throat, and began to speak once again. Then, may I invite Uncle Qin Shan, to distribute the tuft of fur on top of the metal-toothed thorn hog's head to Auntie Li. PFF. Ding Qin Shan was drinking his water at this moment, and abruptly spat it out. The other villagers were also taken aback. When they managed to react, their looks that bore the expression of one looking at a fool instantly shifted onto Mrs. Li. A tuft of fur. This. Ha ha ha, he distributed a tuft of fur. This kid Zhengji, I already said that he had potential, looks like I wasn't wrong. The villagers all began to laugh. Nobody criticized Fang Zhengji's idea. Because, if it were them, they would have done the same. Except. This idea, how did he even think of it? Mrs. Li's face was black as night, her thick, muscular arms began to quiver. She finally understood the meaning behind Fang Zhengji's words just now. Fang Zhengji. Mrs. Li's fist tightened furiously. She was defeated by a 7-year-old kid. Moreover, it was a very obvious display of intellectual defeat. Her anger almost caused blood to spurt out of her mouth. She hated herself for her impulsive actions just now. How could she have not stated clearly before, the hog had to be split equally into half? At the very least, receiving one metal tooth was also not too bad either. But it was already too late. The words had already left her mouth. She wanted to shamelessly go back on her words, start bawling, bully. But, going back on her words to a 7-year-old kid, shouting that she was bullied by a 7-year-old kid. No matter how thick her skin was, she really couldn't bring herself to do it. Humph. Mrs. Li snorted coldly, forcefully stomped her feet, turned around and dashed into the crowd. In a flash, not even a shadow of her could be seen. She really didn't have the face to stay here anymore. Mrs. Li, this tuft of fur, do you still want it? Looks like she doesn't want it anymore, just right. Make this into an ink brush. Fang Zhengji looked at the rapidly disappearing Mrs. Li, stroking the tuft of fur on the metal-toothed thorn hog as if it was a piece of treasure. Deep into the night, a bird, its body white as snow and its claws sharp as a knife, once again shot out from the southern mountain village's Hall of Dao and instantly disappeared into the night sky. Its speed was amazingly fast. The morning after, within the Northern Land's Divine Constabulary, in a beautiful antique-styled study room, Lolita peered at the illustration in front of her, slightly lost in thought. This formation isn't complicated, but it blends in knowledge from the 8 diagrams tactics. If it was really drawn by that little bastard, then the previous case of solving the illustration of all creation can now be confirmed. Lolita took another look at the illustration. Light flashed within her bright pupils. Come, BDNVL.M, Mrs., what do you need? A soldier instantly walked in from outside the study and knelt down on one knee. Make preparations. There's somewhere I want to go. Yes, Mrs. But the Lord is now in the capital city. I fear that there are still 10 days before he would be able to return. Should we wait for the Lord before setting off? The soldier instantly complied with her order, then gingerly asked. 10 days. Okay, I understand. Lolita nodded. Looking out at the rays of light from the rising sun, the edges of her mouth curved into a slight smile. Fang Zhengji. Let me see where else you can run to this time, little bastard. Chapter 37. Killing with another's blade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 37. Killing with another's blade. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. More than 10 days passed in a flash. These days, Fang Zhengji lived a comfortable life. Working together, the Southern Mountain Village hunting squad's efficiency was much higher than him alone. Their shovels moved rapidly, digging pitfalls that were big and round. Fang Zhengji on the other hand took up the role of an overseer. Here needs to be dug a little towards that direction, this rock should be slightly higher, this piece is too small. Other than that, he stood guard at the tiny piece of land he dug himself and lived a free and leisurely life of reading books and waiting for prey. This mountain is opened by me, this tree is planted by me, if you wish to pass. You must lay down your life. The ancestors usually likened guarding a tree and waiting for rabbits to knock into it, 1, to reaping without sowing. But now, Fang Zhengji was evidently living such a life. Except, what he guarded wasn't a tree, but instead was a piece of land. The results were also entirely different. They weren't even able to finish collecting the prey they caught each day. Considering solely green-furred rabbits, they could already collect at least 2 each day. Along with a few other animals, Fang Zhengji even thought of gathering some feed and turning this into a natural farmland. The booming success of the Southern Mountain Village naturally attracted the envy and jealous hatred of the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad. Further considering the leftover anger from being robbed by Fang Zhengji. Raid, another raid. 3 times in a row. The Northern Mountain Village hunting squad over and over again learnt their lesson, improvising on their raiding tactics. Direct raiding, surrounding them, groups of 3 in groups of 2. Zhang Yangping had to invest a lot of effort and racked his brains. But ultimately, they were completely useless. Under the assistance of the rock formation, the Southern Mountain Village villagers were as sly as black foxes hiding in the shadows, each of them appearing and then disappearing unpredictably. When attacks came from one direction, defenses came from all 4 directions. After 3 attempts, it could be said that the Northern Mountain Village had suffered a double loss trying to trick the enemy. Not only did they not manage to snatch the animals, their weapons were seized in each attempt. The originally razor-sharp spears and scimitars now mostly became huge worn-out metal swords. Without weapons, the animals they killed became lesser and lesser. It could be said that their lives were quite miserable. In comparison, the Southern Mountain Village lived each day as if they were celebrating the new year. Everyone was happy and joyful, the hunting squad came back with more and more game, and every single household was able to enjoy meat. How could one not be happy? The night was calm as water. Fang Zhengji sensed within his body which he could control more and more freely every day, there was a faint yet mysterious sensation. It felt as if there were some schools of thinking, or something else, which were about to conflict. The control he had over his body's flesh also seemed to have become finer. Or could it be that the way he thought previously was wrong? What he controlled wasn't at all flesh. Was it blood? That was unlikely. What was it? Hence, unable to understand, he could only employ the most primitive of methods. Accumulating vast amounts of knowledge. Continuing with his reading and memorizing, increasing his powers. Once he reached a certain level, when a breakthrough was supposed to happen, wouldn't a breakthrough naturally occur? While Fang Zhengji was reading his books at ease, within the neighboring courtyard, Mrs. Li was pacing around continuously in her room, restless and agitated. And beside Mrs. Li, Li Zhuangji's expression also seemed to be somewhat dark. Can you go think of something? You have been studying in the Hall of Tao every day, you haven't seen. The gaze in the village chief's eyes whenever he looks at Fang Zhengji, are always glinting with light. That nonsense trap he drew, who knows what divine assistance shone on it. It was really able to divert the animals to run along the pathways he formulated, and one by one jumped into the trap as if they were queuing up to do so. Mrs. Li's saliva flew all over the place. No matter what, this is a good thing. Li Zhuangji folded his legs and sat on the bed. A good thing. Don't forget, when the divine constabulary gave the southern mountain village an extra entrance spot, that spot was snatched right from the hands of Fang Zhengji. Even though it had already been reported up, but, does this mean it can't change? Even though village chief indeed has no plans to do so, but, how about a month later? A year later? Who can ensure that the village chief wouldn't think of a way to swap Li Hue? Mrs. Li became rather anxious. Li Zhuangshi's face instantly sunk. After staying in the Hall of Tao for such long periods of time, he had begun to understand the outside world even more. One just had to pass the law of Tao examinations to enjoy a good deal of favor from the royalties. This tiny southern mountain village is simply not somewhere people could remain for long. Walking out, entering the county, or even the capital. This was the future Li Zhuangshi planned for himself. We cannot lose the spot in the Hall of Tao. Li Hue's improvement within this period is still quite large. As long as he can continue studying in the Hall of Tao, he would definitely be able to pass the law of Tao examinations in the future. Li Zhongshi's gaze moved to Li Hue, who was sleeping soundly in the next room. Then why don't you think of an idea? Fang Zhengji's position in the southern mountain village is rising higher and higher, very soon he will be able to rise over our family. If it continues like this spot will definitely be snatched away by him. Mrs. Li was impatient. If I have to think of an idea. This kid Fang Zhengji is quite smart, furthermore, he did indeed contribute to the village. Our actions cannot be too obvious. Oh, I have an idea. Li Zhuangshi's eyes lit up. What idea? Mrs. Li immediately moved in closer. We will get somebody else to kill him. What? Mrs. Li was taken aback. Stop shouting. You are indeed unnecessarily soft-hearted. Li Zhuangshi was now educated, and began to learn from the words of his sir. Invoking these words, then looking at Mrs. Li's shocked expression, began to explain in a low voice. I'm not planning to really kill him. Think about it, the northern mountain village people definitely hate Fang Zhengji to the core. We will secretly give them the illustration he drew, the consequences will naturally be obvious. I wish to kill him, but the northern mountain village people will definitely not sink to such standards. After all, the mutual dependence between the two villages are quite strong. But, breaking an arm or a leg will definitely happen. You mean? Mrs. Li became interested. All we need is for Fang Zhengji to have his limbs broken, then he will become just like Fang Hao. No matter how large his contributions are, village chief would still not pin the hopes and future of the village on him. Law of Tao examinations, the name list of the Hall of Tao, would naturally not concern Fang Zhengji anymore. As for what else he can do, it would be continuously helping us to hunt animals, ha ha ha. Fang Zhengji's plan for setting up a natural farmland was smoothly carried out. In order to save time, and at the same time minimize the killings between different species, he intentionally split the trapped animals into different groups. A few days later, as per his usual routine, he carried his basket of already prepared feed up the mountain alone. With the protection of the rock formation, the outskirts of the mountain was typically very safe. Furthermore, there was also improvement to his abilities. The stronger one was, the more guts he had. Hence, he didn't worry much. After entering the mountain, he directly made his way over to his personal spot. Checking on the hungry animals stuck within the traps, Fang Jingji threw down the feed. Then, finding a large rock facing the sun, he took out his books and began to recite softly. Tai Kung. As for the 6 thieves. First, if your subordinates build large palaces and mansions, pools and terraces, and amble about enjoying the pleasures of scenery and female musicians, it will injure the king's virtue. Second, when the people are not engaged in agriculture and sericulture but instead give rein to their tempers and travel about as bravados, disdain.ing transgressing the laws and prohibitions, not following the instructions of the officials, it harms the king's transforming influence. This was the chapter on honoring the worthy in the 6 secret teachings, which mainly discussed the 6 thieves and 7 harms. Fang Jingji was deeply engrossed in his book. He had no idea that all around him, there were currently over 20 people, wielding long blades and with wooden bows slung around their backs, lying in ambush. They were the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad. Deputy Captain, the intelligence is accurate. The person has indeed arrived, and there is nobody from the Southern Mountain Village following him. 1. This is a Chinese idiom that describes a person who witnessed a rabbit running into a tree, then thereafter began to guard the tree daily waiting for rabbits to knock into it again. This is used to imply waiting idly for opportunities and hoping for things to happen without any practical course of action, rather than showing initiative. Chapter 38. Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. Okay, everybody make the necessary preparations. We have to be careful, we can't let this guy escape. When I count to 3, everyone will rush out together, destroy his arms but make sure you don't harm his life. Looking at the wooden bow behind his back, an icy glow appeared in his eyes. A few days ago, his metal bow had been taken away by the Southern Mountain Village people, and the cause of all of this was Fang Jingji. This vengeance was something he couldn't swallow. Understood. Deputy Captain, don't worry, we will act appropriately. The hunting squad members nodded. The northern and southern villagers were mutually dependent. Appropriate forms of revenge and conflicts were always present, but if killing occurred, this relationship would be destroyed completely. 1, 2. Awoo. Just when Zhang Yongping was about to count to 3, the howling sound of a huge beast suddenly resonated throughout the entire Cangling Mountain. This stunned all of the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad members, who were already prepared to act. This sound was too near, as if it sounded out from right beside their ears. A hunting squad member was somewhat puzzled. Fang Jingji was similarly rather puzzled. He was just reading his book, where did such a loud howl even come from? He had stayed in the Cangling Mountain for some time, and had encountered a countless number of animals. But this sound definitely couldn't have come from just any ordinary beast. Awoo. As he pondered, a humongous shadow shot out with lightning speed from the dense forests, and ended up less than 100 meters away from Fang Jingji. What the F***ck? It's humongous. Fang Jingji was truly shocked this time. The beast in front of him was really too big. It was at least twice the size of the metal-toothed thorn hog. Its navy blue fur were like metal needles enveloping its body. Its razor-sharp front claws were perched on a piece of stone, and those black claws emanated the cold air of the forest. They looked even sharper than the 2 metal fangs on the metal-toothed thorn hog. Most uniquely, on the forehead of this wild beast, there was a line of fire-red fur. That fur was like a blazing trail, leading all the way from its forehead to its tail. Blue. Blue Fire Wolf. Deputy Captain, it's the Blue Fire Wolf. When the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad saw the beast that shot out, they trembled uncontrollably, the weapons in their hands almost dropping to the ground in fear. Zhang Yangping shook uncontrollably with shock. Blue Fire Wolf, this was the real king of the Cangling Mountain outskirts. It couldn't even be classified as a beast anymore, it was a truly fearsome monster. Deputy Captain, what should we do? A hunter's legs trembled in fear. Faced with the monster Blue Fire Wolf, there was only one way. That was to run as far as they possibly could. The Blue Fire Wolf was too strong, even adding a few people to their group, they were nothing compared to the Blue Fire Wolf, much less their strength of 20 over people. Shoot arrows. I'm afraid that before you even managed to pull your bow, the Blue Fire Wolf would have already pounced right in front of you. Moreover, even if you somehow managed to shoot a few, that wasn't sufficient to injure the Blue Fire Wolf. Because, the skin and fur on the Blue Fire Wolf was too thick. An average arrow could only at most scrape the surface of its skin. If one really intended to kill the Blue Fire Wolf with arrows, that was downright impossible. Run! Zhang Yangping ordered, barely hesitating at all. How about the kid? Leave him, hurry up and run. Fang Zhengji also prepared to run. He didn't even bother taking along his basket, among other personal items. This thing in front of him was obviously very terrifying. Even though he didn't know what it was, but one look at its head told him that it was even bigger than the lion he knew from his previous world. The reason he entered the mountain today was only to feed the animals, he didn't even have a friend beside him. Fight 1-to-1. Fang Zhengji wasn't dumb. But at the second he turned his body. The Blue Fire Wolf also began to move, an icy yet blood-thirsty glint shining in its faint blue pupils. Slightly curving its front claws, its gigantic body shot towards Fang Zhengji like a streak of lightning. Snap! The sound of stepping on broken wood rang out, and immediately after, the gigantic Blue Fire Wolf disappeared. Ha! Looking back, Fang Zhengji instantly stopped running. In his sudden burst of panic, he had forgotten that he was surrounded by pitfalls. No matter how deadly a beast was, as long as it stepped on the trap, it would definitely fall in. Deputy Captain, quick, look. The Blue Fire Wolf seemed to have fallen into the trap. A Northern Mountain Village hunting squad member who was preparing to run had just realized what was happening. Fell into the trap. Zhang Yangping was similarly taken aback. He knew Fang Zhengji was surrounded by pitfalls, but the Blue Fire Wolf was an extremely sly beast, it would never fall into just any ordinary trap. But now, it really fell inside the trap. Quick look, it's just over there. Another hunter shouted out. This kid's traps are indeed amazing, don't tell me even the Blue Fire Wolf had been tricked. Zhang Yangping didn't dare to believe, but this reality was unfolding right before his eyes. Deputy Captain, look, that kid is going over. Deputy Captain, that is the Blue Fire Wolf. If it had really fallen into the trap, it's definitely worth a huge amount of silver. I heard that the worth of the Blue Fire Wolf's skin is even calculated in gold. The Northern Mountain Village hunting squad members were excited. Even though they deeply feared the Blue Fire Wolf, but after so many years of hunting on the mountain, how could they not have developed even a slightest blood-thirsty personality? Right in front of their eyes, the Blue Fire Wolf had fallen into the trap. Their bad luck instantly turned into an opportunity. The Blue Fire Wolf was indeed worth a lot of money, but just the thought of being able to remove such a huge hidden danger in the Cangling Mountain outskirts was definitely something worth risking. Prepare to act. Today we will snatch this Blue Fire Wolf first. This will make up for our losses these few days. Zhang Yangping pondered for a short moment, then biting his teeth, gave his orders. Roger that. The Northern Mountain Village hunting square began to shout out one by one. While they shouted, they also didn't dare to let down their guard. Each of them drew their bows and prepared to kill the blue fire wolf together. Fang Zhengji at this moment was walking unhurriedly towards the pitfall containing the blue fire wolf. All of a sudden, he heard a wave of shouting around him, then, saw a few men wielding long blades and bows scuttling out from the bushes. You want to snatch my prey? This place is filled with traps. Fang Zhengji immediately recognized that these people were the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad. But, he wasn't worried at all. Because, with the presence of these traps, they had absolutely no way of snatching. Ideals are perfect, but reality is cruel. Very quickly, Fang Zhengji began to realize something was amiss. All of the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad members seemed to have grown a pair of divine eyes, even though they ran as fast as rabbits, but all of them skidded around the traps skillfully. What was happening? Fang Zhengji felt that this was downright impossible. Then, something even more impossible thing happened. A woo! With an infuriated howl, the blue fire wolf which had fallen into the trap suddenly jumped right out. Fang Zhengji was stunned. The 20 overshouting hunting squad members were also similarly stunned. All of them stared at this fearsome beast, their faces convulsed with pure fear. From those faint blue pupils, everyone had managed to infer one emotion. Fury. The blue fire wolf has jumped out, run away quick. Run. After a moment of shock, the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad members immediately regained their senses and one following another, instantly began to run. Blue fire wolf. This is the blue fire wolf. But why is there no fire? Hearing the cries of the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad, a wave of suspicion swept over him. Then, he suddenly regained his senses. What the f*ck, blue fire wolf. His stumpy legs could instantly turn into wheels of fire. Fang Zhengji's running speed was definitely not slow. But, compared to the blue fire wolf, it was still slightly inferior. With a swoosh, the blue fire wolf leapt, and blocked off Fang Zhengji's escape path. Most importantly, this time, Fang Zhengji had really managed to see fire. At the instant the blue fire wolf leapt, he saw with unmistakable clarity, a ball of bright red flame engulfed its razor-sharp claws, and once the blue fire wolf landed, that ball of flame once again mysteriously disappeared. There is really fire. Chapter 39. Its name was Blue Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. Fang Zhengji felt that his knowledge of this world was indeed too shallow. But, what was with that ball of fire? That was too mysterious indeed. It felt as if it appeared out of thin air. You mean fire can appear out of thin air, and disappear into thin air? This completely exceeded his imaginations. Fire from friction. Or what else was it due to? Was it the Tao of all creations? The blue fire wolf didn't read books, how could it master the Tao of all creations? Fang Zhengji suddenly felt lost and bewildered. This world seemed to be completely different from what he imagined. He thought that he had managed to understand this world very well, but after turning around, he realized that as before, he was still standing outside the door of understanding. He couldn't understand this at all. After a flash of bewilderment, Fang Zhengji understood one thing. Now, he should run. Woo! Ideals will always be perfect, but reality is always cruel. Fang Zhengji didn't even manage to turn his body. The blue fire wolf had already turned into a stream of light and dove towards him, those faint blue pupils completely fixated on the prey in front of it. Its razor-sharp claws slashed in a beautiful arc mid-air, a bright red flame burning on its claws. Like fireworks in the night sky. Even though Zhang Yongping and the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad bore some hatred towards Fang Zhengji, but as they witnessed the blue fire wolf hunting down Fang Zhengji, they still couldn't bear for this to happen. This kid. What a pity. Zhang Yongping sighed as he ran. He was powerless. Because, even if he stopped to shoot an arrow, he still wouldn't be able to match the blue fire wolf's speed to save Fang Jingji. Let's run. Sigh. We actually allowed a kid to defend us. We have no choice, he is really too close to the blue fire wolf, there is no way to save him. The Northern Mountain Village hunting squad stared at the blue fire wolf, which had already pounced in the air right on top of Fang Jingji's head. All of them felt somewhat helpless. They wanted to save him, but at death's door, who would even be willing to stop their footsteps? Fang Jingji was scared. Met with the blue fire wolf's pounce, the inexperienced Fang Jingji mind almost blanked out, unable to think. But evidently the blue fire wolf didn't bother to take that into consideration. In its eyes, the child of a human undoubtedly had the most delicious and tender meat. Furthermore, the reason that prompted it to ignore the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad to focus on killing Fang Jingji was none other than that this kid actually dug a trap for it. As the king of the outskirts of Zhongling Mountain, how could it accept this? Sensing Fang Jingji's fear, the blue fire wolf could confirm, the delectable flavor that would dissipate its rage was about to enter its mouth a second later. Bam! The blue fire wolf's claws reached the ground first. There was no sound of bone breaking. But, it didn't feel disappointed at all. Because, Fang Jingji was right in front of its eyes, it could already even smell his delicious meat. Fang Jingji was indeed too near to the blue fire wolf. Too near, so near that he was almost unable to breathe. At the crucial moment just now, he didn't manage to react much, forgetting every single defense techniques and only very instinctive fell back in fear. But, falling back, coupled with a roll, gave him the extreme luck to have avoided the killing blow of the blue fire wolf. Even though he managed to avoid one blow, he had ultimately still fallen on the ground, facing the sky. Moreover, the blue fire wolf's razor-sharp claws, which seemed to be made from mythical metal, was placed right in between his two stumpy legs. The distance from his vital parts was only the length of a first. Dead. This time, Fang Jingji was really dead. For the first time, he felt the terrifying wave of a death threat sweeping over him. As the saying goes, an anxious dog can jump over a wall. Let alone a human who was about to be killed. Fang Jingji retaliated. There wasn't any form of technique, acting on pure instinct to kick away this threat in front of him. The two stumpy legs at this instant turned into two rapidly kicking mini-motors. That speed could definitely invoke a gale of wind. Ha! Go away, go away. As he shrieked, Fang Jingji concentrated all the strength in his body to kick at the blue fire wolf's approaching head and claws. The blue fire wolf was delightedly preparing to enjoy the delicious meal in front of it at this moment. When it suddenly saw the barrage of kicks coming towards it, it was almost unable to react and a few kicks landed on its nose and eyes. But, it wasn't too worried. Because that power was indeed too weak. It was just the struggles of a human child faced with death, what use could it have? With its strength, even if it stood still to take a few kicks from this kid, it wouldn't even budge an inch. Completely inconsequential. Feeling the powerless kicks that posed as nothing more than a form of irritation, the blue fire wolf laughed coldly and cruelly inside. The delicious meat was right in front of its eyes, and it advanced. Its huge mouth suddenly widened, and prepared to bite down on Fang Jingji's tiny legs. Then, right at this moment, a huge wave of strength and power washed over the blue fire wolf. Gur, gur gur. From the originally powerless stumpy legs, a terrifying power emerged. Every kick that landed on its face felt like a huge hammer smashing down on it. Awoo! The blue fire wolf unleashed a blood-curdling howl. Its gigantic body was flown upwards, then, along the same arc projectile path, it came back down and slammed into the ground, returning back at the same spot it leapt from. All of these happenings, from the moment the blue fire wolf pounced towards Fang Jingji, to it being kicked back wildly by Fang Jingji, all occurred in a blink of an eye. Zhang Yangping and the rest of the hunting squad, situated not too far away, were completely stunned. All they saw was the blue fire wolf pouncing, Fang Jingji falling to the ground, then the blue fire wolf being kicked away by Fang Jingji. How is this possible? This is supposed to be the blue fire wolf. It was actually sent flying by a kick. Zhang Yangping and the rest of the hunting squad stared at Fang Jingji as if they had seen a ghost. They were completely unable to believe that under these circumstances, Fang Jingji actually didn't die. Deputy Captain, look. Look at the blue fire wolf's nose. It's bleeding. The blue fire wolf is injured. A few observant hunters quickly noticed that on the edges of the blue fire wolf's mouth and on its nose, a few drops of bright red blood trickled down. Drip, drip. The blood dripped onto the floor, and soaked into the ground. Awoo! The blue fire wolf reared its head and unleashed a mad, infuriated howl. That sound, other than anger, was filled with solitary and arrogance. Its name was Blue Fire. It was a lone wolf. In the outskirts of this Zhongling mountain, it was the real king. Regardless of when and where, any animal or human that encountered it only had one thought. That was to run. Having ruled this land for the past years, it had never been wounded in a manner such as today. Chapter 40. Speed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. Fang Jingji's madly kicking legs stopped, sweat dripping like rain from his forehead. What was terror, what was a narrow escape? He felt that at this moment, no one would be able to understand this feeling better than him. It was too frightening. A moment ago, when his short legs came into contact with the blue fire wolf's forehead, it felt as if the kick landed on a metal board. The immense strength and resistance sent his heart to his throat. When he saw the blue fire wolf's salivating mouth biting down on him. At the instant, Fang Jingji felt as if he had stepped into the door of death. Every single pore on his body leaked profusely with sweat. Fortunately, at this crucial period, his blanked-out mind finally unleashed its abilities. That feeling of desperation had pushed him to move everything he could control in his body onto his stumpy legs. His heart only contained 3 words. Give everything possible. Then, the result seemed very remarkable. The blue fire wolf was finally kicked away by him. At the same time, he felt a unique sensation. At that moment, he felt his stumpy legs fill up with power. As if it was about to explode. Wait a minute, just now, he seemed to be controlling. That's right, it was control. When the word control flashed in Fang Jingji's mind, he finally came to realization. Running away now was downright impossible, the blue fire wolf was too fast. If he dared to turn his body, his back would definitely get attacked. That means he could only try to control his body. I am now someone who can shatter a stone with one fist. I can't be scared, I am very strong. Fang Jingji reassured himself while trying to gain control over the flow of things in his body. Thinking of that rejuvenating feeling of kicking away the blue fire wolf, then looking at the blue fire wolf staring at the ground, its nose and mouth dripping with blood. His confidence instantly grew. That's right, I am very strong. Fang Jingji bellowed, doing so to bolster his confidence further. Some distance away, the already completely stunned Zhang Yangping and the rest of the hunting squad were instantly jolted back to their senses by these words. What is he saying? He seems to have said. He is very strong. He's indeed very strong. That last sentence came out from Zhang Yangping's mouth. Even though he didn't really understand what was going on, but, to be able to kick the blue fire wolf away definitely wasn't something luck could achieve. Deputy Captain, now that the kid and the blue fire wolf are confronting one another, let's escape quickly. A hunting squad member reminded in a soft voice. No. Zhang Yangping suddenly bit down on his teeth. This blue fire wolf has been wreaking havoc in the Zhongling mountain outskirts for so many years, who knows how many villagers it had killed. Now. There's an opportunity. Opportunity. The hunting squad members couldn't really understand his intentions. That's right, an opportunity which we never had for so many years. All of you look, now that the blue fire wolf is deep inside the trap formation area with that kid, it can drop down anytime. Furthermore, that kid has the ability to hold off the blue fire wolf for a short time. This kind of opportunity, did we ever have it? Zhang Yangping calmly analyzed the situation. As the deputy captain of the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad, he had the responsibility of ensuring the hunting squad members' safety. But, as long as the threat of the blue fire wolf remained, that safety would forever only be temporary. I will follow Deputy Captain. A hunting squad member very quickly responded. His eyes were fixated on the blue fire wolf not too far away with an icy glint in his eyes. His own older brother had died under the claws of the blue fire wolf. At that time, he was only 17. I will also follow Deputy Captain. Another member similarly stood out. There was an almost 3 inches long wound on his calf that extended into the bones. As long as it was a rainy day, it would become exceptionally painful. This was due to running away too slowly during his previous encounter with the blue fire wolf. In the end, he was slashed by the blue fire wolf's claws. And that was the same time he personally witnessed his buddy, who stuck with him all the way since childhood, dying in the mouth of the blue fire wolf. That brutal scene appeared even in his dreams. Deputy Captain, let's do it. All of the hunting squad members drew their wooden bows, each of their faces revealing a look of pure conviction. Good, that's the way. Everybody, follow my orders. Zhang Yangping gazed at the vigor and determination that radiated out from each of the men's bodies. Traces of tears entered his eyes. The wickedness of the blue fire wolf had caused a lifetime of pain for all the villages within miles of the mountain. On the outside, Fang Jingji's current state still seemed very brave and powerful. At least, Zhang Yangping and the Northern Mountain Village hunting squad had already pinned their hopes on him. But in reality, inside his heart, Fang Jingji was deeply agonized. What, I am very strong. That was just words to reassure himself. Compared to the blue fire wolf. Snap. The shattering sound of rocks sounded out. The gigantic body of the blue fire wolf crawled up. Faced with such immense strength, the broken pieces of rocks on the ground immediately exploded into powder. How powerful the blue fire wolf was can be seen from this. Awo! Howling, the blue fire wolf wildly rushed towards Fang Jingji. It actually wasn't too far off the ground, its entire body keeping close to the ground. It was just like a ray of blue light. Fang Jingji had never before seen such an offensive tactic. Don't tell me the offensive strategy of wolves aren't all about head-on pounces and going around in circles. Then, what's the meaning of this strange gliding scene in front of me? Indeed, I can't try to understand this world based on my past thinking. I'll dodge. Oh, terrain. His eyes suddenly lit up. Fang Jingji, evidently not bothering to be graceful, rolled on the ground towards his right, ending up behind a rock. Having pounced at thin air, the blue fire wolf didn't stop at all. Its humongous body twisted around, and 2 balls of fire suddenly erupted from its 2 hind claws. It was like stepping on 2 balls of fire. Then, initially pouncing towards the front, its entire body forcefully changed direction and was instantly pouncing towards Fang Jingji's back. Nearer, nearer. At this moment, the 2 front claws of the blue fire wolf also burst into 2 bright red balls of flame. There was even a small flame dancing in its faint blue pupils. A wave of scorching smell spread out, a smell so provoking that it even numbed the scalp of Fang Jingji. Experience was what he lacked the most. Real hunters would never turn their heads at such moments. But, Fang Jingji wasn't aware of this. He turned his head, and saw that the blue fire wolf was already less than 1 meter from his back, those razor-sharp fangs dripping with a faint trace of blood. Am I going to die? Feng Zhengji wasn't godlike. At this instant, he had no way of retaliating. He rolled on the floor, wanting to run. He couldn't even stand up. The huge stone was right in front of his eyes, but this single step was so far away. Like a huge ravine, there was simply no way of stepping across. Why is this blue fire wolf's speed so fast? Feng Zhengji didn't give up, but he had no alternatives. The disparity in strength was too large, he simply couldn't dodge this strike.